Almost everyone knows who Jackie Chan is. He's a movie star, he's a singer, some people think he's Santa Claus, and he had his own cartoon. Sort of. And in 1990, he appeared for the first time in a video game in Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu for the NES. The story of Action Kung Fu is based around Jackie and his sister Josephine, who are the #1 Kung Fu champs in China, so their job is to defend against the Prince of Sorcerers who lives on the other side of the Great Wall. However, they don't do a very good job of this. Jackie gets beat and his sister gets kidnapped. After that, it just becomes the typical rescue the princess story. Except, it has Jackie Chan. Everything in this game looks good. The sprites are excellent, the backgrounds fit the style, and most of the animations are done very well. The controls are really basic, which is all they need to be, and they're pretty precise, so you shouldn't have any trouble pulling anything off in this game. Because of the amount of control you have, you don't necessarily need them, but you can also gain special kung fu attacks from the frogs found around the stages. Hitting the frog makes it spit out an orb that gives you a random special, or an item to help you regain some health. I don't think that the specials are necessary to win, but they do give you some options and a little bit of variety in what you can do to deal with the enemies in the game. There is another skill, a fireball, that I didn't find until I got to the final boss. It has a meter on the info bar and was right in front of me the whole time, but it didn't seem like it meant anything more than space filler, so it was ignored. A lot of care was taken in the level design. You aren't going to see really any of the common platformer mistakes. There aren't any incredibly awkward jumps, you don't fall through platforms, and you aren't forced to take damage to get something done. Every stage has at least one moving segment, and they're all pretty good. You can just run through and jump with confidence because there is always going to be a platform waiting for you just off the edge of the screen, exactly where you would need it. The platforming is often overly forgiving. On a segment where the screen scrolls up with you, hitting the bottom of the screen meant death in most games, which was a nightmare in some, but not in this one. Falling into lava isn't a threat either. The platforming is definitely not going to be killing you in this game. Which would be fine. Except the enemies don't do much better. There is a wide variety of enemies, and most of them are pretty interesting. But really, none of them are very threatening. Almost all of them can be handled in the same way, or simply bypassed. Between them and the platforming, there is definitely a lack of challenge to the game. The bosses don't share the same mistake. There are 6 bosses to the 5 stages, and they're all pretty good. The first boss is just a statue, but it's an interesting boss because you can change its pattern by switching sides and confusing it. The second boss is a giant monk. This fight can be a bit difficult because you can easily become cornered, and it can be hard to dodge even slow and obvious attacks at first. It doesn't take a whole lot to kill you, so this could be over really quick. The third boss is one of 2 exceptions. It's an item frog that transforms into a dragon frog to fight you, but you can lock it down immediately or at any point during the fight. It feels like something went wrong in development, because even some of the most basic enemies have more options than this boss. The fourth boss is my favorite. The stage before it takes place in the sky, and if you ever fall off, you get kicked back up by a giant purple foot. Which, of course, is connected to a large purple cyclops. It's Jackie Chan fighting a giant cyclops in the sky. Yeah, I'll take some of that. The fifth boss may as well be the last. It's the Prince of Sorcerers who kidnapped Jackie's sister, and he is absolutely the hardest part of this game. You can't even really call this a fight. This isn't a fight so much as it's a rape of me. Pretty much, all of the challenge in this game is in this one boss fight. and I got very used to the game over screen. There is a trick to this, but there's no guarantee because there's no set pattern. You just have to keep trying, and hopefully you'll succeed before you run out of lives. When you do succeed, you move on to the final boss. And then you move right through the final boss. The ending is a little bit strange. It's just Jackie and his sister, and they're just staring at each other for days, and not doing anything else. Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu is a game that's rarely ever acknowledged on the NES, and it's a shining example of how far the system came in just a few years. Compare it to another third-party NES game, but from 1986. It isn't that much of a step up from what you'd find on older consoles, sound cuts out, and it's incredibly basic. Whereas Jackie Chan is heavily refined, detailed, and a massive step up from the past. Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu isn't incredibly challenging, but it's a fun and exceptionally well-made game that definitely deserves a lot more recognition. If you missed this game, I definitely suggest you give it a shot.